Alright, today we're talking about some alternate movable chord shapes. The movable shapes that most are familiar with are the E and A shapes, as they become the foundation of the most movable bar chord shapes on the fingerboard. The F bar chord is the same as open E. You're just moving the notes up a half step. Same with open A, it becomes a B flat. You can move the D around, but this shape relies on open 4th and 5th strings, so you would have to only play the top 3 strings. The real oddball is the open G chord shape, which isn't really movable. I mean, you can kind of do it like this. But without a capo, it's not a chord form we would think of as movable, at least not easily. Like I said, we're most familiar with these two shapes. The E and the A shape is movable around the neck, along with the minor versions. But you can move around the C shape as well, which is very similar to the D shape on the top 3 strings. And like I said, you're just playing the open strings here on the D, keeping the root and 5th on the bottom, as opposed to the 3rd and the root on the bottom like the C shape. So that C shape can be moved around like this. But alternatively, you can mute the top and bottom strings like this. You could also wrap your thumb around the bottom string like this, and bar the 1st and 3rd strings with your index finger like this. If you want to use all 6 strings, whichever works better for you. But this shape can come in handy, especially when you're looking for an alternative way to play, say, an E flat chord. This way you're not relegated to the A shape all the time. Now to play the minor version, you have to lower the 3rd, of course. So with this shape, you have to do this. Reverse your 2nd and 3rd finger, but your 2nd finger is now down a fret. Now this can be a bit awkward and a bit of a stretch for your 4th finger. However, a little trick you can do is switch the shape around like this. This just doubles the 3rd an octave higher. Now for those of you who have been playing for a bit, you might notice that shape looks familiar, in this case an F sharp 6. So if you find the minor 3rd of the minor chord you want to play a major 6 version of that chord. Once you get beyond the basic triads with their major and minor versions, we start adding extensions, the first of which is the 6th, or add 13. So these chords are not dominant chords, in other words, no flat 7. They can be played as major or minor, of course. There are 2 main ways to play a 6th chord that most of you are probably already familiar with. The version we just covered, based off of the first bar chord type, or F shape. You just add a 6th here on the 2nd string. Most people end up playing only the top 4 strings. And the 6th chord based on the 2nd bar chord type B flat shape by simply playing the top 4 strings like this. Usually barred with your 3rd finger so your 1st can play the root. But most people end up playing just the top 4 strings. Now here are a couple of different ways you can play 6th chords. Remember that movable C shape we had earlier? Well, you can make a 6th chord out of that. Simply add the A note, the 6th note, in the major scale like this, or just play an A minor chord. Now add your 4th finger on the 5th string on the C note. You can even bring these notes down a string and voice it like this, putting the 5th in the bass and only playing the bottom 4 strings. It can sound a little muddy sometimes in lower registers like this, but if you're up here in, say, E flat, it can work as an alternative to the first shape, and of course the minor versions. Now another way you can play a 6th chord is like this. 3rd finger, 2nd string, 3rd fret, 4th finger, 3rd string, 4th fret, 1st finger, 4th string, 2nd fret, and 2nd finger, 6th string, 3rd fret. And its minor version. On to the major 7th chords. You might be familiar with this shape here. Or this. But you can play this version. Similar to an open chord version. You can move this shape around by putting your 4th finger on the 4th fret here and only playing the bottom 4 strings. An F major 7, which you can also play here. Adding a higher register based on that C shape again. Simply lift your 2nd finger. Alternatively, you can play it like this. And another version of the major 7 chord can be played like this. This is based off of the F-bar chord shape again. You're just lowering one of the root notes by a half step, preferably the higher registered one. Or take that E shape here and move it down a string and down a fret, and keeping your first finger on the 6th string 1st fret. And of course you can move it around. Remember to mute the A string and the top E string. And now the dominant 7th or flat 7th chords. Most are already familiar with this shape, and this one, and probably this one, and the minor versions. But here's one more. Based on the 7th shape from the F-bar chord, you just play this. You're just muting the 5th and 1st strings again, and minor. You can make this a minor 7th by barring the top 4 strings and playing the 6th string with your 2nd finger. Another minor 7th version is here. That same shape, just moved down a string. You could raise the 3rd here for a dominant 7th, but it's not the most practical shape in my opinion. So you can use this instead. Similar to the 6th inversion we learned earlier. But move that 2nd finger up a string and switch the 1st finger up a string and the 4th finger down a string. D7th, and make it a minor. It's kind of like a 9 chord that we're about to get to. So if you're familiar with that chord, just move the 1st finger down a string and the 3rd finger up a string. D minor 7th. These shapes can make playing something like a 6-2-5 turnaround really easy. Or now let's move on to 9 chords. So you probably know this one and this one. You can put the 5th on the top here or the root on the top here. This one works nice as an ending chord. But this other one can be nice, especially in the mid to lower register, although you can use it higher, of course. It only takes the top 4 strings. That same shape we used earlier, again for the G6, move that 2nd finger up a string, then shift that whole shape down a string and up 2 frets. As you can see, the G is still in the root. Then we have the 3rd, flat 7, and the 9th. We're omitting the 5th, but this allows you to bounce between the root and the 5th here. Just adds a little bounce to it. In fact, a lot of these chords that we played can work like that. For example, the major and minor 6th. D minor 7th. This 9 shape. And the 7th shape. And one final chord shape, the 13th. So instead of being stuck with this one, you can play this one. It's the same voicing as the one at the 3rd fret, and a lot of chords on the guitar are like this, not a different inversion or voicing, just a different shape. But this way you don't have to move your hand all the way down or up the fingerboard to get a specific chord. Instead, it's small movements. You can go right from a C major 7 to a G13 by moving one note. Or a 6-2-5 again. All these chord shapes are, of course, movable around the fretboard, and I hope this video helps open up the fingerboard a little bit to show you some of the possibilities, which, as you can see, are many. And as you play these things and learn more about how chords are built, you'll discover more. I just covered some of the basic ones that you'll run into playing rockabilly, swing, and even jazz. And just a reminder, I put a link to the tab and the sheet music in the description box below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments or ask anything during the live stream on the weekend. And if you can, like and subscribe, share the video, click that notification bell. All of that helps the channel. You can go a step further and check out our Patreon or become a member on YouTube. Everything goes to help the channel and the band. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time.